Young people are what make a country. In Ireland, we found them open, friendly, and very talkative. We sought out a group of young people to hear what they had to say about their country. After all, it's the young who will be determining the future of Ireland. We found we might have to rethink some of our ideas. We wanted to get a true cross-section of the young, so you'll meet some from the university community, some from the working class, some from the city, some from the rural. You'll meet those that are politically active, and some people from a local Catholic church group. I think you're bound to be surprised by some of what you hear. Ireland is a fast-changing country. With 52% of the population under age 24, the very fabric of society is being redefined. The Catholic Church remains dominant, but the young people are starting to seriously question those who govern their lives and the morality they inherited. We are at Trinity College, a busy urban campus with 5 young people.
The church, to me, has too much of a say in what the government say.
Marie is from Ballyfermot, a working-class community in Dublin. She left school at age 14, is now 22, and works as a secretary.
It's a period of absolute, unbelievable change, even sort of in the last 2 years, let alone the last 10 years.
Alex White, age 23, is a student here at Trinity College. Kieran McAvoy, age 19, lives in the rural area of Cavan and works in a pub. Anne O'Donnell and James Wickham are both university graduates. Anne is part of the burgeoning feminist movement and works in the country's only rape crisis center. James is a professor of sociology at Trinity College.
Okay.
They come from varied backgrounds and have different perspectives. We talk with them about the problems they see in their personal lives and the social issues confronting Ireland. Join us now as we meet the young people of Ireland. You know, in talking with all of you, it seems that the problems of education in Ireland continually crop up. What are those problems?
I would particularly like to talk about primary education. I was a primary school teacher for 3 years, and I feel it's the most neglected area of education in this country and probably in every country, because children between the age of 5 or 4 or 5 and 12, well, they don't have a vote, they don't have any power, they haven't a voice for themselves. And I think that it is the most influenced by the church, more than any other area, the primary school area is, and especially in the employment of teachers. I finally left teaching as a primary teacher because I'm not a Catholic. I was brought up a Catholic, but I no longer am a Catholic. I couldn't identify with the whole ethos of working in a school, a primary school, and I found that my views were totally unacceptable by other teachers and by the system. And the clergy have total control in employing, it's the parish priest, the local priest, who employs the teachers. He has the final say in who gets the job. And therefore there's a terrible pressure on all primary teachers to pretend to be religious, even if they're not.
I think the thing that's really striking about Ireland is that the amount of education that's being provided has been expanded enormously. We're sitting in a brand new building now. There are all sorts of other new buildings in third level in particular all over the country. But a lot hasn't changed. Working class children still have about the same chance, or rather non-chance, of getting into higher education as they did 10 or 20 years ago.
Like a lot of things in this country, you can get anywhere if you've a lot of money in your back pocket. And I think our educational system falls down there as well. Because I'm from a working class family, and because they couldn't afford to send me on to further my education, university or whatever, I never did it. I left school when I was 14, and a lot of that was kind of pressure to actually leave, because my parents couldn't see any need for a girl to be educated, because the plan would be that come 22, 23, I would be married, and there was no need to waste money educating me.
There is literally no divorce here. How do you feel about that?
Not only isn't there any, but there is in fact a ban on divorce in the Constitution. So it's not just a question of passing a law, it's a question of changing the Constitution. And I think the point is that there are a lot of people married who want to get divorced and who just can't. So you have a lot of unhappiness, which until recently wasn't even talked about.
So actually, people should have a right to have a divorce and to seek a divorce legally. if that's the decision they feel as if they've made themselves. I think that, I mean, it comes back to the whole general question of whether you should have the state, or with the influence of the church, actually legislating for people's own individual decisions and their own private decisions, whether they're based on any particular set of morals or not.
I got the impression that you would like to see divorce coming to be legislated in this country. Well, I would not agree with that, for one reason especially, because I feel now, as a young person, that I would think very, very strongly of marriage. If I was getting married in the morning, I would really try to be definite about marriage. That I really would want to make it work. But if I ever thought there was a clause there that if I could get out of it, if there was a way that I could get out of it, but it didn't really matter. If it doesn't work, okay, I get a divorce. But if it does work, well, it'll be okay. So I think it's a way out.
Because there's no system, there's no way of getting out of a marriage should it go wrong. It's too much of it's too dangerous a decision for me to make, to commit myself for life to a man that I'd rather see myself just living with him.
Will you have children out of wedlock?
I could see myself doing it, yeah.
I think there's a big joke in Ireland. It's a country which puts a lot of prestige, a lot of status on the institution of the family and marriage. But what it actually does is make it impossible for people to have decent personal relationships. And I think that's part of something that Marie was talking about.
A lot of women are being beaten by their husbands, and a lot of children are being beaten. And this, I think, is very much to do with the fact that there's no divorce, there's no way out for these people. It's also partly to do with the area of contraception, which maybe we'll talk about later. I don't want to go into that now.
Talk about that now. Go ahead. How do you think it fits in?
Well, I think it's. I think part of the reason that marriages are breaking down is that people are having more children than they can cope with.
Contraceptives are banned in this country. Would you all like to see that changed?
I don't believe that sex is something there to be enjoyed just as a go to a dance, pick up a woman, and or pick up a girl, as I should say, and do your best for the night, and that's it. And that's why we should have contraceptives. I think that the thing is, sex in itself, as far as I am concerned, it's a communication of love between two people, and I don't think that if contraceptives are let loose in the society to young people that don't really think seriously about sex.
Do you feel like you come from the traditional point of view?
I think I come from. It's a point of view that I don't believe I have inherited, because sex is something that was never and still is never talked about in my family. If something about sex comes on the television, my father either starts telling something that was on the news before it, or turning that damn thing over to something else. But even if it's serious, he still won't look at it. My mother will, definitely.
I think that it's absolutely essential that people should have the right to have access to contraceptives, so as they can be responsible in their relationships, rather than the opposite. I think it's actually, when you talk about responsibility in relationships, you should be talking about actually providing contraceptives and making contraceptives accessible to people, rather than preventing people from having contraceptives, which I believe is actually bringing about irresponsible relationships.
Do you think your mothers and fathers wished that they had contraception available to them?
My mother does. My mother had 9 children, and she doesn't like children. To this day, she still doesn't like children. She had no option but to have 9 children. She now states that had she had contraceptives, she would have used them. That she would have had 2 or 3 children. And she also said, I think it's very funny, that had a male pill been available, she'd have made damn sure that was in my father's sandwiches, it was in his coffee, it was in his tea.
James, are there any young practicing Catholics left in Ireland?
They're not exactly very noticeable any longer, not strictly practicing Catholics. Most people would define themselves as Catholics and as practicing Catholics, but that doesn't mean obeying the teaching of the Church all the way down the line. For example, on sex.
I believe that there are that there is a great majority in this country good practicing Catholics. I know it through my own experience, but that doesn't say that every one of those Catholics are totally perfect, that they're not capable of making a slip, that they can do something wrong. I don't believe there's a great majority in this country losing their religion totally. I think an awful lot of the young people in this country are taking their religion more seriously.
Right now, I'm in the process of trying to find out really what I'm supposed to be belong to, and that's I'm going to classes to find out exactly what Catholicism is all about. But I certainly don't consider myself as a practicing Catholic. I go to Mass, that's my limit.
I'm thinking that that's not a particularly Irish phenomenon. All over the world you get a tendency for religion to become a more personal thing. The people who think of themselves as religious people define it purely in sort of personal terms and not simply in terms of going to Mass or whatever. And I think that's a fairly general thing.
I don't want the people of the Irish of Boston or the people of Boston to go away from all of what they're hearing today thinking that Ireland is going down the tubes in terms of morality.
Yes, there's certainly a rebellion, but I think it's not a morality, it's a question of a different morality. We've all been talking in our different ways about moral choices that we want to make. That's not immorality. I think the really striking thing about Ireland now is the gap between what's going on amongst young people and what's going on in politics. Think of a very simple figure. 50% of the population of this country now are under 24. What that means is that in an era of social change like what we're living through, the politicians who are a lot older have got no connection at all with what young people are thinking, with what young people are demanding.
Young people would see the political party system as being very redundant in terms of how they feel the particular issues that are confronting them and the particular demands that they're taking up are actually going to be seen through.
The politicians are basically, I would argue, being very dishonest. And the result of that is that they're trying to keep the lid on what is getting more and more like a pressure cooker.
I think one area you didn't mention that I certainly feel has been very influential in the change in Ireland over the last 10 years is the women's movement. I would say that the women's movement is probably the strongest alternative political force in this country at the moment, and has been for a number of years now.
I feel we're changing all right, but because I'm an extremely impatient person, they're not changing fast enough.
Well, now you've met some of the young people, and perhaps you've seen a glimpse of Ireland's future.